Hey, how's it going? This is Dylan with Dylan'sGuitarShop.com, and we want to talk real quickly today about installing a 4-screw vintage style Telecaster bridge on a Telecaster body. I've got this guitar that we're building for a charity, and so we'll go ahead and show you kind of the basics of installing this bridge. Now, this bridge has already been pre-drilled, so it's really pretty basic. There's only a couple of things that we want to keep in mind. Typically, these bridges come with 4 screws in them in the package here, and they come with a wrench that you use to adjust the intonation, and we'll get to that in another video. But if you're doing this from scratch, there's a couple of things we want to remember. One thing you want to not forget, now we're going to show this video on 2 different products. If you have the full bridge that encapsulates the pickup, you don't necessarily need to worry about this because the strings ground through the plate of the bridge pickup. But if you are using a bridge pickup that does not have a ground plate on it, or if you are using a short bridge that, like with a humbucker or a P90, or in this case, we're actually hard mounting this bridge so that it's just so that it looks proper, then we will need to use a ground wire underneath here, okay? Because you need to ground the strings. Now, if you don't ground the strings, then you'll get a bunch of problems. So there's a hole that's been drilled in the body. So we just string this through to the control plate, the control cavity to be used later. And I don't leave a lot of wire sticking up here because we don't want to hold the bridge up, but I leave a little bit so that it grounds underneath the bridge, and then we basically just line this thing up. We use cruise tools here at Dylan'sGuitarShop.com, and just make sure you have the proper size screwdriver, and you screw this thing in. I would not recommend using power tools for this because sometimes you can have trouble and end up bending or warping a little bit the bridge. Alright, now a word of caution when we're tightening down these screws. No matter the bridge brand that you use, it's always important to know that if you over tighten these things, you can bend the bridge a little bit, warp it, and change the shape of the bottom of it. You don't have to have a lot of torque. This is literally just holding the bridge on the guitar. There's not a lot of people think that all this stuff has to be super tight. You don't have to do that. Just snug it down and it'll be fine. As long as it doesn't rattle and it's snugged up real nice, you won't have a problem. It does not need to be torqued down, okay? Over tightening is a bad thing. I'm going to go get a complete guitar, and I'm going to show you how we rough in the intonation so that we can make that process a lot easier. Okay, so now we have this is a completed Dylan Custom Guitars Tele style guitar that has already been all set up. But I want to just show you a couple of things when you're putting a new bridge on a guitar, or you're changing the saddles, one or the other, that'll help this process along a lot easier, and it'll make it to where you don't have to fight with it as much. Before you ever put your strings on, determine the scale length of your guitar, and you can do that by measuring from the nut to the 12th fret, and that times 2 is what your scale length should be. So on a Tele or a Strat style guitar, it's going to be 25.5 inches. On a Gibson style guitar, it's going to be 24.75 inches. And you can look up, those are the 2 big ones. You can look up your particular manufacturer and know what your scale length is. But if you're putting together like some sort of parts caster or putting together some sort of scratch build from the beginning, where you put the bridge is really important, and where the saddles start out is also really important. So On a Tele or a Strat style body, you're going to have a 25.5 inch scale, which means you're going to have a 12 3/4 inch distance from the nut to the 12th fret. Now, a lot of people will just throw the bridge on the guitar, and then they will throw the strings on and move the saddles back and forth. But what I like to do is pre-measure from the 12th fret to the very top of where the string breaks over on the saddle, 12 3/4 inches. And then I just take my screwdriver before there's any strings on it or any tension, and I put that in the exact right spot. And then I pull the next saddle back a little bit, and I pull the next saddle back a little bit to compensate for it. That'll at least get you close, so that when you start to set up your intonation on your guitar, that you'll be in the ballpark and you won't have to move springs a long way. You won't have to move saddles a long way. That is the basics of installing a Tele bridge on your guitar. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or a question on social media. And this is Dylan at dylansguitarshop.com.